G'day, Ziggy D here, and welcome to my first impressions review of the new action-adventure game, Sacred 3. Now, I picked up this game today, it just released. I had heard a lot about Sacred 1 and 2, an action RPG series that people regarded pretty highly. And I was eager to get in and try out any sort of new action RPG. However, I couldn't really find out too much info about this game prior to release, but you know, I asked people, is this a loot-based action RPG? And yeah, they're like, yeah, Sacred 1 and 2, well, I'm sure this is as well. Well, I picked up this game, and it isn't actually a loot-based action RPG. The development team has changed. Essentially, the IP changed hands to another development team, and what Sacred 3 is more of an action-adventure, action combat style game with some RPG elements in there. It is not loot-based. You actually don't find loot in this game at all. What it is more like a game like God of War, focusing on the combat side of things. And naturally, because of this big shift and because of people's positive receptions to Sacred 1 and 2 back in the day, Sacred 3 has already got some really, really harsh reviews on Steam, and that is simply because it is not anything like Sacred 1 and 2 at all. So, I would encourage you guys to not get this game. If you wanted to basically get another Sacred game in the Sacred series, I think they probably should have called it something else, Sacred Rebirth or something like that, because it is exceptionally different. However, I haven't played Sacred 1 and 2 myself, so I'm not, I guess, marred by this idea of it not being like the previous games. I can judge it based on its own merit, and I did play about 6 hours of it today. So I'm actually going to take you guys just through a little bit of the gameplay. Start the game just here, and I've tried out each of the different classes, but I'm going to jump on the highest level one so I can show off, you know, something I'm a bit more familiar with one of the assassin-based characters here. There's a bunch of different classes. There's like your marauding barbarian. There's a Templar, which is kind of like a medium-ranged character. There's a spear woman, which is also kind of like a medium-range support character. There is the assassin, which I'm playing just here, which is you know, a DPS close-range character. And there is an archer, which is obviously a long-range character. And they all play quite differently, and most of them are satisfying. The archer is very, very powerful, probably the easiest of all of the classes, but is kind of not as exciting as the other ones. But I really enjoyed the assassin. I'm playing on the hardest difficulty, and we'll go in and jump in here. Here is a wave-based mini mission. Essentially, this will be a series of waves. So, I'll take you through this mission, and then I'll go through some of like the character setup and stuff like that, just so you guys get an idea of what this game actually is, because that's what needs exposure, what this game actually is. So I'm playing with the controller. I can play with the controller or keyboard. It has WASD movement, or analog movement on the controller, and I do recommend playing with the controller. Essentially, we have a dodge roll with the B button. A is a sort of our light normal attack just there, and then we have two special abilities. We have a heavy special attack just there. Oh no, that might be a light special attack. And then we have a heavy special attack just there. So this one just here on my right bumper deals damage to enemies and AoE around me, as well as absorbing some life and, you know, returning that back to my character. So this wave-based mode is pretty cruisy. These are kind of like intermediary missions. The game is quite linear, and you progress from mission to mission. And this is one that's sort of like a filler between story quests just there. So there'll be another wave starting up. This left bumper ability just here allows me to do sort of like whipping ability that will sometimes stun and interrupt enemies as well. Now, essentially the game is composed of, you'll see there's a little icon above that character there, and this guy here is doing, what I'm going to do is use an interrupt ability. We have kind of like a, it's kind of like a, I guess it would be like a shield bash or a guard break or something like that. But you can charge that up and use that to knock out enemies, to lower their shields, lower their guards. We can execute this guy just here as well. Or to interrupt certain attacks, and that's very important. The combating in this game is actually the highlight. Like, the way that you play in combat is quite interesting and quite fun. Essentially, it's a combination of attacking at opportune moments, you know, stringing together just the combo of the basic attack. It's literally just mashing A, so pretty simple on that. But then using your abilities at the correct times, dodging out of the way of different attacks, and you know, blocking and interrupting attacks where you can as well. And then, so for example, this guy here, the Swirling Blade, I really need to block that guy there, or he'll deal a lot of damage just there. So I'll use some. It's actually, I'm playing on the hardest difficulty. I've played on the hardest difficulty outright. It's not particularly difficult. The game's not particularly difficult. I never really had too many moments where I had to repeat. I had a couple boss battles. Maybe I died 3 times in one boss battle before I figured it out, essentially, before I, you know, figured out the attack patterns and all of that jazz. And this is a game about attack patterns. It's got a similar sort of style vibe to Dark Souls, where you are figuring out enemy attack patterns and how to deal with the different enemies you encounter, but it's nowhere near as hard as Dark Souls. It is much easier on the even on the harder difficulty. So based on that, and since this game is co-op with drop-in co-op as well, you can literally push start on a second controller now and drop someone else in. It's a good game to play with a partner or a friend or a buddy, just for a bit of a chillaxed time. Now you see this other thing, every now and then you'll see like a grab icon. It is actually possible for me to... Let me interrupt these guys just there. Executing is great fun. One of my favourite things for sure. There's some enemies, smaller enemies, you can actually pick up and throw them at other enemies, and that actually does quite a bit of damage as well, and is quite effective. Can knock down enemies and things like that. So I've had a pretty good time with the combat. It is rather simple, but it's learning the enemy attacks and you know, using all of the things at your disposal, which you often do have to use all of the things at your disposal, is quite satisfying. So overall, I've enjoyed that a fair bit, and you know, you do have to pay attention when you are playing on the hard difficulty. So it looks like we're moving into the final wave just here. I'll pick up the gold. The gold allows us to unlock abilities and such, which I'll show that to you guys after this. But I don't think we'll get to see a big boss battle in this, but the boss battle is actually one of the highlights. Maybe I can get that for one of you guys a little bit soon. But we'll be able to see like an elite fight at the end of this at least. So I'm going to round up some of these dudes and use this ability just here. So here is an elite, which is kind of like a mini boss, I guess. But these guys sort of give you a good indication of what boss fights are like. Because the boss on the first level is pretty similar to this dude. It might actually be very, very similar to this dude. Like, bosses become elites later on as you become more powerful. So essentially, as you can see, he's a big brute, you know. He does the slow attacks and you have to dodge, basically. So it's about learning this. He does a charge, you know. Sometimes they'll have abilities that you absolutely must interrupt. Other ones, you have abilities that you absolutely must dodge. So basically, combat against bosses is often a case of learning their attack patterns, learning when to dodge, learning when to interrupt, watching out for, you know, any environmental issues and things like that, and then going ham on them as much as possible. So we can use our special abilities there, we can use our other special ability to heal a little bit, watching out for the environmental stuff just there, dodging behind him. Oops, I accidentally dodged roll into him a little bit. That didn't exactly work. Just doing a charge attack just there. There is one boss that's, I have to say first, the bosses are fun and satisfying and probably one of the highlights of the game. But they're very similar. Literally, the first 8 or so bosses are basically big brutes like this. You know, in the 5-6 hours I played today, all the bosses I encountered are big, slow-hitting sort of dudes, and just learning their attacks and dodging and things like that is the case. So it's not particularly difficult. Every now and then you'll get this power move thing, which I don't really know why they added this into the game, but basically it's free damage. You can do a couple of hits before you initiate it, and once you initiate it, you just mash Y and kind of hold them, this hold, dealing damage to them. I don't really understand it. I feel like that could have been left out, or maybe something a little bit more engaging could have been thrown in there, like maybe a little quick time event or something like that. We leveled up. Cool. I'll be able to show off some of that after here. So the combat is simple. It's tight. The controls feel good on everyone except the Archer. I didn't think the Archer felt very, very fun to play or very responsive, but the rest of them feel really fun. Especially the Templar feels really, really good. But you know, it's simple, it's smooth, it feels good, and that's basically what you want out of an action combat game. What it is kind of light in is the other elements, the RPG elements, and that's what a lot of players have been expecting. So essentially, I'll first show you the storyline. So this is the story screen just here. Essentially, I can zoom out. Essentially, it's Mario-like, you know? Not really much in the way of decisions. You scroll along this way, you go to each mission, you know, these are the story missions, the ones with the big icons, and then these ones are like intermediary missions. From the intermediary missions, you often get extra little rewards, so this one gave me a totem skill item that I can drop to restore my energy, and there's another one up, you know, I got potions from the early ones and things like that. So you essentially progress there. You'll actually see another player up there. Earlier, this Looking Glass Knight player dropped into my game, so there is drop-in. I think you can enable or disable that at will, but essentially that person dropped into my game and they must still be playing. Essentially, that's why they're sort of still in this campaign, so that's a pretty interesting feature just there. Another thing I noticed that I want to point out here is that the game does indeed have Day 1 DLC. You can see here there's this Bengaresh, Grimlock Chieftain plans to overrun. You go to activate it. This downloadable content is not yet installed, so there is some Day 1 DLC, and I know people are not really a fan of that, and I can't really blame them because it feels a bit shitty for games to leave out content. But let me check out. Oh, we're about to go into a I'm going to say goodbye to my party here, and then hopefully I can... Here we go. Here we go. Looks like they must have dropped into my game again. So I can show off my character just here. The item shop is nothing more than purchasing potions, so nothing really interesting in there. There's basically not gear in this game. The actual equipment you do get is kind of dropped specifically through the campaign, and is more of like a choice of skills than anything else. So your character will get armor that levels up as you level up, and you can spend gold to purchase upgrades, and this is very simple, just defensive buffs. You have a choice in weapons. The different weapons have different effects on them. So, chance to immediately execute an enemy on this one here. This is the starting weapon just there, and they get different abilities as well. So you can actually, some of them are linear, so straight here to here, and other ones are split decisions, so you have to choose one or the other. So immediate execution chance increased by 50%, or you can go just for straight up damage, and you make a few choices that way, and you upgrade the weapons you like essentially, and you can actually undo these guys if you like. I think I'm not sure what's the limitation on the undo, but it seems to be pretty lenient, like you're quite able to shift gold around as much as you like. I'm currently using this one, for example, which gives 15% chance to trigger a shadowy explosion, which essentially gives me more range. You can see the stats on the left there. This one has the most range, and as you upgrade these things, you'll see, the damage increases here, the range increases there, and I can upgrade these different things. Now, one of my major gripes with this system is that everything is level gated, and levels serve nothing else than to gate the things that you can unlock. You are pretty much the entire game getting a lot of gold that you can't really spend on anything, or at least unless you just want to unlock stuff that you're not using, because everything is level gated. So essentially I'm using this weapon, I really like this weapon, but I can't put any more upgrades on this until level 12. But if I do go back to this one, it looks like it's the same for each weapon. So all these guys are level gated, so I could purchase this if I wanted to spend my gold for whatever reason. But if I'm not interested in using that weapon, then there's no reason to. And combat arts are the same. As you level up, you unlock different combat abilities. These are all of the combat abilities for the character, unless more unlocked somewhere else, but these were basically all the ones that were grayed out initially. And you can purchase the first point in these to get these, but then again, after all of that, they're level gated, it's 1437, and it takes there's no real interesting choices in terms of progression. You have a bit of a choice of which things you use, but not which things you unlock, and the order in which you unlock things is really a non-issue. So there's not much, decision to be made there, only on what you actually use. So the two skills that you choose, so skills, obviously act differently. You can build your character based on your skill choice, your weapon choice, and so on, but it's pretty simple. It's what you'd expect from a game like God of War, or one of those action combat games. The character builds are reasonably interesting despite the simplicity here. Like for this character here, I was trying to build for skills that knock down. So for example, I am using Entropy Ray just here, which knocks down enemies and knocks them out, and you can increase the range, and you can increase the knockdown potential of that as well, I believe. I thought there was a knockdown potential increase there. But I was trying to build with this character for knockdowns and then executions. If you knock down an enemy, you can follow up with an execution, which you can actually put points in executions here. So I increase the range, I can gain energy on execution, get other benefits, follow up an execution with another one over a larger distance, so you can chain executions. Then you get health orbs from executing, and a bunch of extra bonuses when you execute monsters. And because executing is quite fun, I wanted to build for that knockdown execute combo. So there are some interesting different ways to build the characters despite the simplicity. And the things that you do choose, the skills that you choose, and the weapons you choose, actually do feel like they make a difference. So I think that that about covers it for first impressions. Overall, here's my assessment of the game, whether you should buy this game and how good I think this game is. I think it is an average to decent action combat game. I rate it something probably like a 6 out of 10. And on my scale, a 6 out of 10 is not a fail grade like they are on a lot of websites where everything gets a 9 out of 10. When I say 6 out of 10, I mean that if you're a fan of this genre, action combat games, then you will probably get a bit of a good time out of this. If you don't have anything else to play, then you may want to pick it up. If you're a really big fan of the action combat genre, you may want to pick it up at full price. However, it is $50 on Steam at the moment. For the rest of you guys who are kind of looking for a bit of an extra fun game to play with something with a bit of fun combat, especially the co-op is quite good. I did play with Amy a little bit, and I did play Drop-In earlier, and that is pretty satisfying. There are a lot of skills that combo together. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there. So if you're a fan of those things, then but not a massive fan of the genre, or you have a few other good games to play, then I would wait until it's on sale for like $20. So my overall recommendation for most people is probably don't pick this up at full price. It's okay, you know, it's okay to decent. It's not great, and it's not another Sacred game. It's not a loot-based action RPG. So maybe one to pick up on sale, to keep an eye out for like the next Steam summer sale or something like that. Anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll probably play a little bit more of this game, to be honest. I don't think it's actually one of those games where I play for one stream, then I'm done. I probably will play, you know, an hour or two of this every here and there. I think that's the best way to enjoy it. Anyway, guys, that's it for now. I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching.